Welcome to the Friday Casebook. Hi, Roger.
Hi, Lena.
Our last Friday Casebook would have been on Christmas Day, but it was Christmas Day, so this is why we're recording it now. And this is the last show in 2020.
It is. And so let me start by wishing our wonderful viewers, our community, a very Merry Christmas festive period.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from my side too.
Happy New Year and all the very best for 2021. So let me start by wishing our viewers, our Facebook community for the Friday Casebook, a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year, and show you the Pianta di Natale, the Christmas star. Merry Christmas and a happy New Year. All the very best despite the lockdown.
Roger, what caught your eye in this Christmassy week?
Well, that's a very good question, and I think we can't avoid talking about the famous EU-UK trade and cooperation deal, and I hope everybody watching has read it. The MPs will be reading it in the UK. I think the MEPs in Europe will have a bit longer to read it. But here's a picture of some other people who have read it. Charles and Camilla, and let's see what they have to say.
Oh, the Queen in red.
Of course, the deal was signed on Christmas Eve, and there's the Queen dressed in red for Christmas. I'm not quite sure why she's wearing red, whether it's just because it's Christmas or it's some kind of political statement. And there's Charles and Camilla. And we're wondering what the Queen might be smiling about. And so we imagine that Charles has read the Brexit deal from cover to cover and is reassuring the Queen that at least there is no threat to the royal corgis or to the royal swans or to any other part of the royal estate, that British sovereignty is fully protected, and they're having a nice chuckle about that. So much for the good news.
So what did the Prime Minister have to say about it?
Well, he had quite a lot to say about it, and I think one of the things he wanted to say about it was that was the last thing anybody was going to say about it, that he would have the last word. But I think the conversation will continue, and it can continue from where the Prime Minister left off. So let's go to the last word that the Prime Minister spoke at his press conference on Christmas Eve. You may remember that the last word that Boris Johnson said was sprouts, Brussels sprouts. He said, so much for Brussels, now for the sprouts. And off he went to have his Christmas lunch and his Brussels sprouts. And there we have some very nice roast Brussels sprouts with Parmesan. And we hope everybody's had a nice Christmas lunch and not just Boris Johnson. But the point about Brussels sprouts is that after the 1st of January, of course, Brussels sprouts will still be free to move freely, without impediment, without any friction or barrier between Brussels and London, as will tomatoes and potatoes and all kinds of other goods. But that won't any longer be the case for people. Free movement is coming to an end on the 1st of January, and that is very bad news indeed. The other thing that is, well, there are many things that we need to unpick in the Brexit deal, and I would just point at this stage our viewers and our audience to the very good publication Vox Europe, no E, voxeurope.eu, where you will find our 10 takeaways as new Europeans from the Brexit deal. And we will have a look again at this in a little bit more detail on the first Friday Casebook of the year next week. But one of the issues that I think will already be apparent is, as well as losing our rights to free movement between the EU and the UK, the government has also decided to cancel Erasmus. And the reason for that, I think, is pretty obvious. It does, on the surface, look like a nasty, spiteful thing to do. It is a nasty, spiteful thing to do, but it's a logical thing for them to do, because after all, what has Erasmus done? Erasmus has given generations of young people the opportunity to work, study, live and love, and in some cases even start families and produce babies, European babies, and return, if they do return to their countries of origin, as committed Europeans. And one can imagine that the last thing that the Conservative government want is for young generations of British students in the future to have the opportunity to be exposed to the European way of life and come back as committed Europeans, or indeed to allow EU students or others on the Erasmus scheme, because let's remember the Erasmus programme is not limited to EU member states. Other students from other Erasmus participating states to come to the EU, because all that Erasmus does is remind everybody about what a good thing it is to be able to say, I'm a European. And they don't want that, so they've cancelled the scheme.
Yeah, this makes me personally very sad, because I was able to go to the UK thanks to Erasmus. So, yeah.
Well, it is very sad. You're very sad and I'm very sad, but the name that the Brexiteers have for us is Ramona. And as you know, we'll be mourning the passing of free movement and Erasmus indeed, and all the things that we'll be losing as Britain leaves the economic structures of the European Union on the 31st of December. But the Daily Express view about us is that we should just let go. We should just let go. We don't need to let go of the Brussels sprouts, because we've heard that Brussels sprouts will still be free to move, but we need to let go of the things that we won't have anymore, like free movement and Erasmus. And of course, this is a journalist, Luke Harker, is writing in the Daily Express about the New Europeans Connection Lost event on the 31st of January, where we will be hearing testimonies about how valuable free movement has been in the lives of people who have been able to live, work, study, love, retire in the European Union or in the UK. But I just wonder whether Luke Harker, I'm sure the Daily Express is a very good employer, and it allows its staff to have paid holidays and proper contracts and so on, although now we've left the EU, it's getting much easier to undermine those kinds of standards. And I just wonder whether Luke will be taking a holiday in Europe next year. And if by chance I'm sitting next to him on the beach, I'll just be waiting for the moment where he tries to use his mobile phone to download a favourite movie or a favourite football game or something like that, and starts complaining about the roaming charges that he will have to pay now that Britain has left the EU. At which point I will turn to him and say, well, Luke, we are all Ramonas now. I think actually that there's so much unfinished business in this deal that the conversations and the negotiations will have to continue and will continue. Of course, we are all as fed up with Brexit negotiations as we probably are by now with Christmas turkey, if we eat Christmas turkey and Brussels sprouts. But unfortunately, there is too much left to discuss and to talk about. Services, for example, weren't included in the deal. And there are many things that still need to be talked about. So Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, said it was a long and winding road. She didn't talk about Brussels sprouts, she talked about long and winding roads to her door, to the door of the European Union, to the agreement. But I think, and Europeans think, that the long and winding road will continue. And the thing about long and winding roads is that sometimes they turn back on themselves. And let's hope that the long and winding road that leads on from this agreement will eventually lead one day back to the EU's door. And when that happens, one might speculate about the kinds of conditions that the European Union might impose on Britain returning to the EU's door before Britain might be allowed to join the EU again. Perhaps Britain would have to start driving on the right side of the long and winding road rather than on the left side of the long winding road. And perhaps our viewers in our community might think about the types of conditions, serious or otherwise, that might be imposed on Britain when the long and winding road leads back to the EU's door.
Yeah. Okay. Apart from that, Roger, what else is happening in Europe?
People might be forgiven for thinking that the only thing that has been going on in the last few days has been the EU-UK trade and cooperation deal, but that's not the case. Life goes on even at these moments of great historical import. And in particular, I want to update our community and our viewers about what's happening in France, civil liberties in France, which is an issue that we've been talking about. You remember there were concerns about the surveillance of demonstrators and people protesting, civil rights campaigners in France, including our friends at the European Civic Forum and Les Ligues des Droits, against some of the very restrictive measures that were being introduced by the French government, and the protesters were being filmed by drones. And the court in France has now said that the police and the interior minister are not allowed to do that anymore. They're not allowed to use drone surveillance of demonstrators in France. Government may try to overturn that at some point in the future, but that is an important victory, civil rights victory to note in the courts.
Who is on the naughty step this week? Maybe a surprise this time, or not at all?
Well, it's been a very tough choice this week, but as it's the last week of the year, I think we need to give our award for occupancy of the occupants of the year of the naughty step. And of course, there's only really one show in town when it comes to that, and it's our very good friends in inverted commas, and here they are, Mr. Orban and Mr. Moreksi. In fact, if you go to the New Europeans website, neweuropeans.net, you'll find an article by Piotr Kaczynski from New Europeans Warsaw about Polexit. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking we've only just had Brexit. The last thing we know is Polexit. But certainly there are signs that, familiar signs from what happened in Britain, that things are starting to move that way. And it's best to learn from what's gone on in the past in other parts of Europe, such as with the United Kingdom, and do everything we can to make sure that that doesn't happen. But if Polexit is in the mind of the Polish Prime Minister, he's going to be staying on the naughty step for quite a long time. What's happening in Poland and Hungary is just one of the challenges the European Union will face next year. And we're looking forward to the start of the Portuguese presidency of the European Union on the 1st of January, which, if this picture is anything to go by, and by their press statements, is going to be very much focused on the digital economy and on an equitable, dynamic, healthy, sustainable and digital future for Europe. So what's not to like about that? So I think there's lots to look forward to in next year, lots of positive things to be talking about, and we look forward to the start of the Portuguese presidency, which starts on the 1st of January, and of course, which we will revisit again next week.
So, Roger, it's not only New Year's Eve that is coming up, but also a very special event, I heard.
There is a special event. We are creating a vigil for freedom of movement, for the loss of freedom of movement between the UK and the EU. It's a 12-hour vigil. We have people from all over the world, from not just from the UK, from Europe and from other parts of Europe and from all over the world, coming on to talk about free movement, what it meant for them. And let's remember that the history of Europe, the story of Europe, is really all about people. People might say, well, why do you hold a vigil for a principle, freedom of movement? But it's a little bit like a person dying, Lena, in the sense that, you know, so many of our experiences, so many of our memories are connected to the fact that we had that opportunity, those opportunities to work, travel, love, retire, work across Europe, that is now coming to an end. So I think it's appropriate that we mark the passing of freedom of movement. We're going to hear people's stories as they show their appreciation for what's gone before. They remember the great times that they had thanks to freedom of movement, how it's enriched and opened up opportunities for them in their lives. And at the end of that, in 12-hour vigil, we will announce a statement of solidarity for people to be able to sign, because the last word will be not the connection is being lost, but that we are all still Europeans. We are all still part of Europe, not just geologically, as Boris Johnson said, but emotionally in many of us, and certainly in terms of the values that make Europe a community of values and not just of interests, that will go on. So the long and winding road will continue. We will sign that statement of solidarity between Europeans and the UK, people of the Europe and people of the UK, on the 31st of January, at the end of our 12-hour vigil to mourn the loss of freedom of movement, called Connection Lost.
And if I want to take part in this event, Connection Lost, how can I do this?
So we go to our website, or indeed here you see it advertised on the website of the Press Club Brussels, where New Europeans has its European headquarters. Go onto our website, neweuropeans.net. All the information is there. Sign up, register, get in touch, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing your contribution in this 12-hour vigil, Connection Lost, on Thursday, the 31st of December 2020, the day when freedom of movement between the UK and the EU, very sadly, comes to an end.
And this will be a very long but also very important day, so I'm looking forward to it.
We will publish the full programme the night before on the website and on Facebook, and we know that people won't be able to watch for the full 12 hours, but we hope that they will dip in and out of it during the day, and we will also be making a programme of the highlights from the day for publication later on. More about that on the Friday Casebook next week. In the meantime, let me take the opportunity to wish everybody a very happy New Year.
This is wonderful. Thank you, Roger, and looking forward to Connection Lost.
See you next week. Happy New Year, Lena.
Happy New Year, Roger.